I got you. I got you.
I forget that all the time. I don't remember saying everybody take a seat except for Melissa.
She hasn't changed since high school.
All right. So we got a little rain and we got a lot of people not here. Okay. All right. Before we finish up on step 5, let's go back to, did anybody finish their 4th step? Or finish like one of the sheets? Some? Yeah, be finished. You finish yours then? Okay. You want to share your resentment list with us? Let me have the list. Don't matter if I'm on there.
Is he on there?
I haven't seen you in years, so
I
I'm still holding on to old shit. If it's,
Yeah, I was just,
all right.
I just did those. I didn't do.
That's
the
it?
Marks. Yeah.
That's not enough.
Oh, okay.
Well,
And 3 resentments. You're just coming back. I'm sure you can come up with more than 3 resentments. Who's got a list done? Anybody got a list done? We need somebody who's got a list done. Huh?
How much? Come on.
Okay, so nobody actually did their work, huh?
I did.
You did? You got your list done? Can we share it? Can you share it with us?
Yeah.
Good, let me have your resentment list.
Wait, what if I'm on there?
I'll skip you.
Wait.
All right. Well, you guys are pretty healthy. You only got,
Well, that's
3,
just that page. I got another.
yeah.
No, I don't have that one with me.
Oh,
That's the one she is.
That's the one I'm on.
okay.
Yeah, that
So
was-
this is not complete. You don't
I
have,
talked about justified anger, right?
you don't have the 5th column done. No, not on the 5th column. Okay, let's try this again. Does anybody have their 4th step done, resentments, fears, any part of their list done?
I didn't get my 5th column or all my 4th column.
Okay,
We only needed to get a list.
I have mine done.
you have yours done?
Yes.
We can't see it though.
Oh. Okay.
Jenny, you got your list done? Did you do your 4th step? Did you do yours, that one?
At home?
No, that's
The dog ate.
the dog ate mine. Okay, so it's very difficult to show you how to analyze this and get to the exact nature of your wrong if we don't have an example to go over. So do you want to share yours? Or you don't have yours filled out either? Ooh,
You want
bunch
me
of
to-
real alcoholics here. So I think somewhere it says half measures avail us nothing. What do you-
Okay, you finished it.
Okay, you put checks on there, all right. Okay. So on your resentment list, you've got, in column 1, you got Jennifer, okay? Sued me for back child support. That's what you put in column 2. In column 3, you have personal relationships and material securities checked. And in column 4, you put holding on to the anger.
I paid the child support. She came back at me for back medical bills.
Okay,
And I raised 3 different kids by myself with no help from their deadbeat mothers. And she was a money hungry little bitch.
okay.
That sounds like a resentment.
Good thing you wrote it down. And it sounds like you're still holding on to the anger.
Yeah.
But then in column 5, you just mark dishonest and self-seeking and frightened.
Well, self-seeking because Hurts my pocketbook.
Okay. But, so let's look at, she's suing you for, or she's taking you to court for medical.
Already have. Been,
Yeah, no, but she took you to court for medical stuff, right? Is that what you're saying?
yeah,
Did you owe the medical stuff?
I guess so.
Okay. So in column 4 then, so this is what we're gonna do when you work with somebody, you're gonna go over the columns, how you're gonna press, change, and rearrange. So in column 4, you're gonna change holding on to anger to didn't pay my bill. Because that's really your part. The fact that you're holding on to anger is just justification for you thinking that it's justified resentment or justified anger, and it's really not. You know, and you classify her as a bitch, but all she wants is what she has coming to her, right? So, when you look at it like that, then, you would probably in column 5, also check selfish. Okay, which is not checked. And in column 3, those two are fine. Your next one is Julie. And she never paid child support, and so that's your resentment. And you put, it affected your personal relationships and your material security. And then in column 4, you put holding on to anger again. You like that phrase, huh? So you were raising the kids, she was supposed to pay you child support. And, okay. And why didn't she?
You just never did.
She's just another bitch, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Did she have a job?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so she could have paid you. Did she have a relationship with the kid?
She doesn't now.
Did she then?
No.
She didn't have a relationship with the kid.
Couple years she was in prison.
Oh, is that when she didn't pay you?
No, she didn't pay me the whole time. I
Okay,
never received a dime from, they were 1 to 18.
okay,
I raised them the whole time.
okay. So in column 4, you don't have any part in that. You, holding on to anger is what you put. So is there a bad choice there of your picks in life?
Oh, yeah. My
Okay.
kid was broke.
Yeah.
Ran over by a truck.
So maybe in column 4 is that you had a poor choice in your relationship. Okay. But you want to look at self. And again, if you can't find anything that any part you played, then you put how you reacted to it. But before you put how you reacted to it, see what part you had. So, you chose to have a relationship with this person, right? You must have known how she was, what type of person. You didn't find out after you had a kid and left, right? Okay, so. And then on column 5, you put dishonest and self-seeking. Why were you dishonest?
Telling myself the lie.
What lie?
That I was well taken care of with the kids. We never missed a meal. We never missed a rent check. We never.
But that's not to do with Julie and what she did. That's you and your kids, So, I mean, I would say dishonest, but not for that reason. I would say dishonest. And it's important to go over every line on here. So they understand and have a better understanding of what they're doing. And add a check where one needs to be, take a check off where one shouldn't be. So
May I
dishonest,
say something?
no,
No.
no, sweetie. You need to sit down and listen to us, sir. So I would say dishonest and self-seeking is correct, but the dishonest part is for different reasons. It's what we just talked about. Okay, and Sheila,
Charlotte,
Shiloh. And she disowned you. Who was she?
that's my son, Shiloh.
Oh, that's your son. Okay. He disowned you. And that affected your self-esteem. It did not affect your personal relationships.
Yes and no, I guess,
Oh, I know.
because I stood up to being a dad of what I thought was right. Crossed the boundary.
But it's still, if he disowned you, it has to affect your personal relationship.
Well, it hurts, yeah.
So, okay, but that's not marked. So you want to mark that. Let me have a pen, please. So you want to mark that, and you want to mark on the other one. What did we say? Okay. And then it didn't affect your security, material security, but it did affect your emotional security. Okay. In column 4, you have nothing there. Why did he disown you?
Because I stood up to being a dad. I mean, I was,
Well, you know, that makes you sound, and I'm not trying to pick on you or anything, but when you're working with people, you know, we always write, and we always want to put our good face forward. You know, you've heard in AA, we want to save our ass and our face at the same time. And that usually can't happen. So you were trying to be a dad, right? I would assume, and this is just a guess because I don't know, but I would assume that in so being, you were probably an asshole in a lot of ways. And in so being, you were probably wrong in a lot of your decisions with him. Okay. So that's what you have to look at. That's what you have to put down here in column 4, you know, because there's a right and a wrong way to like if you tell a kid, a little kid sits down at the table and we're drinking wine and the little kid's got water. And I don't want water. I want wine. You can't have wine. I don't want the water. Okay, you don't have to have the water. You know. And so then the kid has nothing to drink. Or you don't want to eat the food. Well, that's all you can, that's, you know, it's either that or nothing, right? And then the kid don't eat nothing. Well, that, you know, that may be okay. How you present it is different though. When you're dealing with children, there's 3 things. You ever heard of the 3 C's? Choices, consequences, and consistency. And if you teach a little kid those 3 things, when they grow up, they're going to have a lot better principles in life than people like us had. Okay, so a child can have a choice. You can teach a child this. It's a choice. The choice is you have water or nothing. If you choose nothing, that's your choice. So there's natural consequences, not punishments.
well, he was 16 and kept bringing weed in my house. And I told him I don't allow weed in my house. And I
Okay.
told him, you can either live here and go to school and do what you're supposed to do, or you can.
Yeah, but I get that. Okay, so he disowned you when he was 16.
Yeah.
There has to be 15 years of shit before that, because a child doesn't disown their parent just because they can't bring weed in the house. So there's got to be 15 years of shit going on, and that's what we need to get to. That's your part. Understand? You're not, pure as the white snow here. Okay, so and these are the things that need to be in this column, and they're not. There's nothing here. If I was sponsoring you and you gave me this, I'd tell you go back and do it all over again, because there's really nothing. It's not my job to fucking drag this shit out of you. It's my job to help you analyze this stuff. But you have to look at it. I sit down with you and I tell you, this is not about you holding on to anger. This is about how you acted for 15 years, probably like an idiot, probably like a mean big baby. A lot of the time, So, like I said, with children, there's choices. That's one of the 3 C's, right? But those choices, the consequences of those choices are natural consequences. They're not punishments. So if you don't do this, then I'm going to punish you. You're going to get this. No, if you don't do this, the natural consequence of you not doing this is whatever it is. And if you teach a child choices, consequences, and consistency, you're consistent with all that. You do it all the time. then that child's gonna learn how to make healthy decisions for themselves growing up. Problem is, we didn't have that, probably most of us. We didn't have it, so we don't know how to pass it on. So, again, choices and consequences, the consequences are natural consequences of choices. They're not punishments imposed by you, the dictator, the father, the one who's right. You know, I'm your dad, therefore I'm right. You know, that's the attitude a lot of us have. This is my house, I pay the bills, so what I say goes. Well, that may be true to an extent, but doesn't mean that you're not an asshole in the process. You know, so, and listen, there's nothing nice about going over this stuff. There's no nice way to deal with this stuff. You have to, when you're working with somebody, you have to lay out what you believe is the truth to them. And there's no, you know, I think Barry used to say that he was thankful that I was, what'd you say, Barry? Instead of that I had the, I forgot what you said one time. That I had the, that you were thankful that I was honest with you.
If you love me enough to hurt me, that you weren't afraid to hurt my feelings.
Oh, yeah, that's what you said. That's a good one.
My sponsor said, I'd rather step on your feelings in your grave, so get over it.
Yeah, right. So what we want to do, see, it's just not okay to just write down your resentments. That's just not okay. To write down your resentment. Okay, you still mad at them? No, I'll say a prayer. Right? No, we got to take a look at it. There's, if your children are on this list, I guarantee you have a part in it.
Can I say something?
Yes,
So, I mean, just kind of listening to you and whatever.
I want to give this back to you because it's going to be the same thing with all these people. I don't want to, you know.
Because I'll just say, like, on my side with my kids, like, if there's a situation, you know, a certain situation that I may be, you know, kind of staying on and sticking with as far as why I'm angry or my resentment or whatever, I'm not looking at the whole picture at the end of the day of, you know, I mean, I was using and drinking throughout their childhood.
Yeah.
You know, and that could have definitely affected my parents, and I could maybe have, you know, even that situation at hand, you know, I may have not have said it or, like you said, you know, parented like I should have, and so yeah, just taking a look at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just one situation, but you know, the whole picture.
Yeah, the whole picture. Yeah. Hey, listen, anybody in this room or anybody not in this room, anybody that has a fourth step, a resentment list, and has their children on there, I guarantee you have something to put in column 4. Period. You are not immune to column 4 when it comes to that. Probably you have something to put in column 4 with everything on your list, but most definitely no excuse if your children are on there. You have a part in that because they're your children. And it's your job to teach them and bring them up. And oh, did you have a question? Yeah, bring it up. Good man. You got one on here. Jesus.
He said he got one.
Jesus is on. I thought he meant he had one sheet, not one resentment. Lupus is your wife?
No, lupus is my wife's disease.
Oh. So you have a resentment against the disease?
Yes.
Okay.
I have difficulty differentiating.
Change our lives. No children, no communication. Thought of myself as a single parent. Single parent to no children?
Well, we have one daughter.
Oh,
and
okay.
She was diagnosed shortly after, so no more.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you're mad at lupus because it changed your life. And it affected your child instead of no children. And no communication. So you're blaming the disease of lupus on lack of communication.
I can, yeah.
Well, sure you can. I'm sure you can. Actually, you did. You did, but you're not correct there. That needs to come off. The lack of communication is about you and you know, and your wife, but we're not looking at her inventory, so it's about you. And it's not the disease's fault. Thought of myself as a single parent, okay. And it affected your personal relationships, your emotional security. Did it not affect your material security? Did it not cost you money to deal with that stuff? Huh?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's not marked. And your acceptable sex relations, okay. And you thought too much of myself. Not really in my control. I got mad, hard to differentiate lupus from my wife. What do you mean by you thought too much of yourself? What does that have to do with the
I feel
disease?
selfish for thinking of myself when my wife had lupus. She was the one
Oh,
that
yeah.
was suffering.
So instead of being kind and considerate, you were mad. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. You should just write that. And then on column 5, that you acted selfish. It sounds like you acted inconsiderate also. It sounds like you were frightened also. None of those are marked. Okay. So, now, your resentment list, do you have another list that you've done?
Well, I have one that's not gonna be sure.
Yeah, that's okay. I just want to make sure you got one that has one resentment. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do then. Since we have lack of participation. You finished yours? You got a whole sheet there? Damn, you added all those resentments in the last 5 minutes? I bet you come up with another sheet if you can do that. Okay,
That better, is that?
yeah, okay. Antoine is your brother?
My idiot.
Your brother?
No. The guy I was with.
Okay, you're
the
other,
idiot.
okay. And you're mad at him because he brought dope to your house.
Well,
So
this is when I first relapsed.
when you were with him, is that what he did? He got high?
No, this was the first time we met in person and he was having dinner. And I was still cleaning. And he knew that I was in recovery.
Okay,
Um,
so if you came to my house and you brought dope, I wouldn't relapse.
I'm sorry.
If you came to my house and you brought dope with you, I wouldn't relapse.
Okay.
I'm just pointing out that, you know, where we're blaming the wrong things a lot of the time on these papers. You know, not that it doesn't mean you don't have a resentment, you'd have the resentment, but what did we say when we were going over what resentment is? It's wrong thinking, isn't it? Remember that? Remember I gave you those definitions? So wrong thinking, right? So my point is, if you brought dope to my house, I wouldn't relapse. So there was something the matter with your spiritual condition.
Oh, like a year and a half prior to meeting you, yes.
Go to your book, everybody, go to your book. Go to page 100 in your book. I want you to read this. This is very interesting. Last paragraph. Assuming we are spiritually fit, we can do all sorts of things alcoholics are not supposed to do. People have said we must not go where liquor is served. We must not have it in our homes. We must shun friends who drink. We must avoid moving pictures which show drinking scenes. We must not go into bars. Our friends must hide their bottles if we go to their houses. We mustn't think or be reminded about alcohol at all. Our experience shows that this is not necessarily so. And Bill really wanted that to say that that's not true. We meet these conditions every day. An alcoholic who cannot meet them still has an alcoholic mind. There is something the matter with his spiritual status. You get that? So when I say to you, if you came over my house with dope, I wouldn't relapse. Now, I wouldn't tell you, I wouldn't invite you back. unless you understood to not come like that. But I wouldn't relapse in the process of it. And the fact that you relapsed behind that is there was something the matter with your spiritual condition. Okay, but let's see what you got here. Column 3, you checked everything. Everything right there. Give me the pen again, please. Everything checked is not correct. So it affected your self-esteem. Why does bringing dope to your house affect your self-esteem?
You know, I was already in that. I was already in a bad place.
Right.
Um,
I understand that. That's why you relapsed.
well, we had this conversation, he and I, about, you know, having, I wasn't going to meetings, I wasn't working the program. But he knew that I had been in the program for a long time, and we talked about this.
Right.
And so it affected my self-esteem that he like just thought that it'd be okay to just bring it over, but while we were having dinner, you know, and
I think it affected your spiritual condition, not your self-esteem. So if it were me, I would take that cross out. It affected your personal relationships. How so?
well, that was the beginning of, you know, I had already cut people out, and I think I was just ready. I was just ready to use.
Right.
again.
But the fact that we're not looking at the fact that you relapse and what happened as a result of relapsing. We're looking at the resentment that you have listed here, that the guy brought dope to your house, and I want to know how that affects your personal relationships
Cause then I was just seeking out people.
afterwards.
Yeah.
No. It affected your material security. Did you give him money for that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. It affected your emotional security. I can see that. It affected your acceptable sex relations with him.
Yeah, you can probably mark that one out.
Well, you have acceptable and hidden both. It can't be both of them. It's got to be
Hidden.
one.
Hidden.
Why hidden? Were you in a relationship with somebody else?
No,
So you were in a relationship with him, or your ambition was to be in a relationship with him. So that's acceptable sex relation.
Okay.
The hidden sex relation is if you're with him and you're doing with somebody else.
well, okay, but here's the thing, I didn't want a relationship with them, I wanted to connect. That's what I want.
So you wanted to connect, but you were mad when he brought dope to your house.
Well, yeah.
He brought the connect right to you.
Yes, ma'am. That's what
Yeah,
we
he
do.
He answered all your prayers. Okay, we're gonna take off hidden, and then you could have put him out and not used, sold myself for dope. But you didn't sell yourself for dope that night.
Not that night.
Okay, so. The next day maybe, but not that night.
Yeah, about
Okay.
2 months later.
And you were selfish, you were dishonest. And you're self-seeking and frightened. Okay. All right, so here's what we're gonna do then. All right, guys, so do you see how the point is when you're working with somebody to question everything that they have down there? So you can get to the exact nature of what's really wrong here, okay? And those column 3, the checks in column 3 and checks in column 5 are utmost importance, okay? You need to go over every one of those and see. Now, of course, again, when you see a blank line in column 4, that's a red flag. Person's not being honest, okay? And when you talk with them over each resentment, over each fear, over each sexual conduct, over each harms to others, you'll get the truth. What I like to do is I like to go over, when I'm working with somebody, I like to do their resentment list as soon as they're done with their resentment list. So their 5th step will be done like in 4 parts. And we do the resentment list and we go over it because I really don't have the patience to sit down for 5 hours with somebody. I just don't. Yeah. So I do, and I think it's more beneficial because we can concentrate on the resentments on each line, on which thing, and we go over all that. Okay, now here's the important point. So again, column 1 is going to show us just how mad we are at the world. Okay. Okay. And column 2. Is that an echo or? In column 2, I find out it's really not the people, but rather what they did to me. Okay. Now, column 3, here's the important thing that you guys need to know. Each column, each sub-column in column 3, you need to go down for resentments and count every check that you have and put a total on the first page. So,
What did you just say? I'm sorry.
okay, so column 3, you have 6 sub-columns, right?
Yeah.
And let's say you have 3 pages of resentments. I know you guys here, your examples here, you had half a page, but and more realistically, you're gonna have 3 or 4 or 5 pages, right?
Even now?
No, not even now. No. I'm referring to a new person, but yeah, you're right. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, even
I
if
just think-
you've been around, you shouldn't have 5 pages. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But it's, I'm trying to hone in on the newcomer, right? Going through the steps for the first time. But you're right. Let's not forget that. But let's say you got 3 pages, okay? You want to count every check you have in your self-esteem column and put the total on top. Every check you have on your personal relationship column and put the total on top. And do likewise for all 6 of those sub-columns, and you total it on top. Okay? You're gonna go over to column 5, you're gonna do the same thing in column 5. You're gonna look at each of the columns, selfish, how many checks do you have, put it on top, to put a total there. So, I'm sorry, I keep taking your pen.
Oh, you're good.
So let's say,
For each sub-column, for each.
Should have given him this pen.
Wait.
okay, so here's what I want you guys to do.
Even if it's 0?
If it's 0, put 0 there. So I can tell you right now that let's say in column 3, I just wrote some numbers on my sheet, just wrote numbers. In column 3, I put self-esteem 20, personal relationships 22, material 15, emotional 26, acceptable sexual relations 10, hidden sexual relations 4. Okay, I just put numbers there, you know? So if I'm looking at my sheet, I can tell you right away, immediately, and when I'm working with somebody, I can explain to that person that their anger, most of the time, stems from their emotional security. The number that has the highest number of those 6 columns is where your anger comes from most of the time. Not every time, but most of the time. Followed closely by self-esteem. So emotional security and self-esteem. So that means that every time you get mad, it's probably somebody has messed with your emotional security or your self-esteem. Of course, the other ones are in play too, but you can pretty much, this thing, I've been doing this for so many years with so many people, and I've never had anybody come back and say, wasn't right.
You're taking the climax out, the realization out of it by telling us.
Well,
Party pooper.
okay, yes.
So you said we could have one in each of sub-columns of the sections, but we could on the security and the-
Yes, all the other ones you can, but in the sex column, it's either going to be acceptable or hidden, one or the other. Now, you may have, let's say, your wife, and that resentment or that sexual conduct, you may have acceptable things checked. Then you may have your wife again, and it may be a hidden thing, but probably if it's your wife, it's gonna be acceptable.
So, so cheating, right? That would be hidden.
Cheating, well, it wouldn't be hidden if it was in column 1, your spouse or your partner. It would be acceptable sex relations.
Right. So the person I cheated with would
That would
my
be hidden, yes.
What about prostitution or using sex for personal gain?
Okay, so in your sex inventory, you talking about?
Is that hidden or acceptable?
Well, but what page are we on? Are we on resentments? Are we on fears? Are we on
Yes,
sexual resentments?
Mhm.
So you have prostitution in column 1.
I guess that would be more of what.
So the reason I'm
Yeah,
asking,
I'm asking of like, because there's so much shame and guilt associated with that, would that be something that would be considered for me a hidden set, something that I hid from the world, something that lends to the
Yeah.
column 5 dishonesty?
yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I absolutely follow you. The reason I asked what sheet we're on is because if you had it in your sexual inventory sheet, it don't belong there.
Okay.
Because prostitution has absolutely nothing to do with the sexual instinct.
Okay, cool. So
Okay,
yes,
so if you have it in your resentment list, then more than likely it's gonna be hidden on that.
Okay, well, that's what I was thinking, but I wanted to clarify that.
I can't have all the scenarios go through my head, but it might be one that it's acceptable, but I doubt it.
Okay, cool.
But certain, definitely hidden. But the important thing is if it's on your sexual inventory list, it don't belong there. It belongs somewhere else on the fears or the resentments or the harms to others. But not on your sexual list.
Did you say cheating would be acceptable?
No, I didn't say cheating would be acceptable. All right, I could see her in a meeting next week. Well, Danny said it was cheating was acceptable. No, she asked about her partner and she cheated on her partner. And on column 3, the 2 boxes are acceptable sex relations and hidden sex. It's acceptable sex relations that is affected by that. Because it's about her partner and that affected her partner. All right, everybody got that? Danny did not say cheating is okay. Now, I used to say that, but not anymore. Okay. Now,
See, I really like, I just gotta say, I really appreciate this, that we're talking about 4th and 5th step stuff and we're able to like laugh. with one
Yeah.
another. It doesn't have to be so.
okay, so on column 4, you're gonna put, again, your part, right? And in column 4, these are the things that you're gonna talk about in your 5th step and ask God to remove in your 7th step.
Okay, so it's column 4.
Yeah, and it's also gonna alert you to your defects for 6. So column 4 is very important because, again, you're gonna discuss column 4 in your 5th step. You're gonna recognize your defects in the 6th step. You're gonna ask God to remove these things in that column in the 7th step. And you, yes,
So in column 4, right, and because the scenario you were talking about, when they bring you something, right, and you look at it, and it's not what their part is, do I just send them back to fix it, or do I tell them what it needs to be?
well, yeah, you tell them like I did with Chad. I said, and I did with Dev. As you know, it's not complete. You have to fill it out. And then when we go over it, you want to point out where their thinking isn't right, and so they can. Because again, it's all about the exact nature of wrong. Now, column 3 is going to pinpoint that. But it really doesn't have the effect that it can have if they don't understand what it was all about. So it's really, you're really helping that person. No, at the moment, it probably doesn't seem like you're helping them, because you're being straightforward with them. And people like us don't really like that, especially when we have to take a look at ourselves, So, but the truth of the matter is you can't help anybody more than to be straightforward with them. Okay, when it comes to this. So column 5 is going to be the same thing. Whatever your highest number is. Now, here's the interesting thing. So let's say in column 3, we'll just put column 3 here, right? You got all these things, and then in column 5, you got all these things, right? So let's say that your highest number in column 3 was your emotional security, right? Emotional security, okay? And your next highest thing was self-esteem, right? And in column 5, your highest number was, I put on my sheet, self-seeking and frightened and dishonest, right? So self-seeking, frightened, and dishonest, right? Okay. This is very important because this is so true. When somebody, don't forget the mantra. Don't forget the mantra. Resentment comes from a threat to any basic instinct, right? These are your basic instincts we're talking about. I can't do anything about other people. I can't do anything about what other people do. But maybe with God's help, I can react differently and not get mad. If I'm not mad, I don't have resentment. If I don't have resentment, I'm not blocked off from God, right? And the same thing with the fear and all that stuff. That's the mantra. So if my anger comes from, most of it is, this was 26, right? This was 22. And this was 18 and 16, let's say, right? This is what happens. When somebody messes with my emotional security, I get mad and I usually act out in a dishonest way. Now, when I act out in a dishonest way, I'm going to step on somebody's toes. And when I step on somebody's toes, they're going to retaliate and cause pain and suffering in my life. First thing I'm going to say, how could you do that to me after all I've done for you? Right? But what happens is, what they do or somebody else does because of that is going to affect probably my self-esteem. And when my self-esteem is affected, I'm going to act out in a selfish and frightened way. You see how this works? This sets this off, which sets this back off, which sets this off. It is a vicious cycle that never ends until we get sober and realize what's going on in our life. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
This pattern, if you look at your own inventory, I guarantee you this pattern you're going to find true. Doug, you got a question?
So dealing with column 4 in the future with steps, we'll break the cycle between 3 and 5.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's where we're headed.
Yeah.
Okay.
In through 5, 6, and 7 and 10 and 11, right? But now don't get me mixed up here. I'm not saying that every time somebody messes, that every time you get angry, it's because of your emotional security. Maybe it's something else. But let's say it is your emotional security, because that is the number one spot that you're gonna, and I'm only going off of the numbers. It may be different for you. But every time somebody messes with your emotional security, it doesn't mean that you're going to act out in this one. You could act out in any one of these, but probably it's going to be this one because that's the highest number. That's the proof of your life. If you're honest with your life, then this is going to be, the totals are going to show. And that's, so you could put a bet on it that it's going to be, every time you get angry, it's going to be one of your top 2 numbers.
So
Well, not every time, I'm sorry, almost every time.
So you made reference to the emotional instinct or security instinct on emotional, that it would fall in line with self-esteem. Is that always something? Because most of mine are.
No.
personal.
No, from my inventory, that's the way it was. It was
Okay.
my emotional security and my self-esteem were my top two.
But my top two can be.
Oh, yeah,
whatever
your
my
top two could be whatever. Yeah, I mean, you have 6 choices in column 3 and 4 choices in column 5. So whatever they are, those top numbers. But again, before you count them and tally them up, you must sit down with your sponsor or somebody. And if your sponsor is not aware of this process, teach it to your sponsor. Because your sponsor can still help you with this process. You can show your sponsor this process and then because your sponsor will be able to get the truth out of you. If your sponsor can't get the truth out of you, you might need a new sponsor.
I like how it like really ends up being true in
A true inventory.
like numbers.
Yeah, but not only is it a true
quantifiable.
inventory, you understand. Like we talked about with Chad and I and Deb and I and him and I, when we just went over some things that they have on their list that shouldn't be on their list, and some things that should be on their list that wasn't on their list, and explain why. You know, we talked about why. I didn't just say this shouldn't be there or this should be there. I explained why. Vic?
I'm asking for a friend. What is emotional?
Is that damn goat again, huh?
What is emotional security?
Okay, that's a great question. What is emotional security?
guy would have.
So
Yeah.
let's say, I'm just gonna give you a simple example, and then you can multiply it to anything in life. Well, let's say, me and Doug, I want to be friends with Doug. We're not friends, but I want to be friends with Doug. And you interfere, that's an ambition of mine, right? Because the book talks about ambitions also. And you interfere with that somehow, some way. I get a resentment. My emotional security is upset. Or maybe it's my self-esteem, or maybe it's my personal relationship. But emotionally, I got upset because you interfered with that, one of my basic instincts. Resentment has to come from a threat to one of my basic instincts. Fear has to come from a threat to one of my basic instincts. Now, let's say Doug and I are friends and you mess with that. So I'm going to be just as mad at you if we are friends or if I want to be friends with him because you interfered. And it's probably because emotionally I reacted. So emotional security is, how do you feel emotionally? Okay. How do you feel emotionally? What's going on emotionally with you? And me, you remember way back in week 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever, we did the E over I. You remember that? Emotion over intellect. So here I was when I got sober. Wow, I think I was like 32. And I was still a big emotional baby. It was just, I kind of likened myself to, I could just throw myself on the floor and kick my hands and my feet up in the air.
They call that king baby.
Huh?
King baby.
King baby. Because that's about the extent of my emotional security when I got here. Now I've learned to, over the years, to just do that at home and then just, and stop doing it all together, But so, how do you feel emotionally? What's going on emotionally about something? And that really comes to play when you're talking about your, the opposite sex or somebody you're trying to have a relationship with, or maybe it's the same sex. I don't know.
If they leave themselves with them, and I need to make me.
Yeah.
Well, because we talk about material and we talk about emotional. Material is everything outside of me. Emotional is everything inside.
Yeah. Material.
Die with.
So under security instinct, there's 2 columns, material and emotional, right? So material security is money.
Anything outside of me.
Yes, things. Not anything outside of me, because it's not about other people.
Well, yeah, but I mean, yeah,
Tangible stuff.
I'm not gonna leave them.
Yeah. Money and things, and the book talks about, we worship money, sentiment, okay. So the book says we worship money, sentiment, that's emotional. Money is material. Sentiment is emotional. So the book talks about that without explaining what it really is. So yes, but outside of yourself,
Physical house.
yes,
all that.
yeah, right. So, and that's what, and my experience is most people I've worked with over the years, their emotional security, their self-esteem are the top two. Like me, not everybody, but most of the people. Because when you get right down to it, we're just not very mature when we get here. Amy? Self-esteem? Oh, sure. Self-esteem is a big one. Self-esteem is a big one. It's so how are you okay when you're always trying to prove something, right? When you're always trying to put up a front, okay? So my self-esteem, most alcoholics and addicts suffer from low self-esteem. Most of them, not everybody, but most of them have an issue with that to greater and lesser degrees. So my self-esteem is about how do I feel about myself? Okay. The perfect example is oh God, I just had a blank. I just had a mature moment. I'm trying to think of the two words that cover that perfectly, and they're just no, they just completely left my brain. But it's about how do I feel about myself, right? What is my is there something wrong with me, or is there something wrong with the way I feel about me?
Shame and guilt.
Shame and guilt. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't know I was on out loud. Oops, sorry.
No, thank you, because I couldn't think of the two words, shame and guilt. A lot of us don't understand the difference between shame and guilt. Guilt is I've done something wrong, and I want, what are you gonna, what's gonna happen when they find out? Or a shame is, it's not shame and guilt, it's shame and
More.
no. But shame is so guilt, I've done something wrong, and shame is I think I'm something wrong. I think I'm something wrong. And that's all about my self-esteem. Okay. So naturally, when you've done something wrong, your self-esteem is gonna, because you're full with fear now. But when you suffer from low self-esteem, you think you're something wrong. You think you're wrong. There's something, you think lower of yourself. Yeah, your opinion of yourself. So when people come into recovery and they suffer from low self-esteem, the usual answer in AA is do esteemable things. Well, what the hell does that mean? Again, that's just like telling somebody to write down who they're mad at, but they don't go over all this stuff with them. But that really is the answer, is to start practicing esteemable things, but you have to define that. You have to help people with that.
Somebody that, obviously mine, but I'm taking the image for here, but it's like, because of their insecurity that they actually think that there's nothing wrong with them, and they hurt others in their life. They don't ever see it. So
Yeah, that's called pride.
yeah, pride.
Yeah,
Right.
that's pride is too high opinion of oneself. I think we went over those. Yeah.
Skewed self-esteem.
And a lot of people suffer from low self-esteem, but act in a prideful way to make them feel better. They will never know that. It's not like they know that and they're doing that on purpose. They're doing that because that's what makes them feel better, because without that, they're falling apart on the inside. Their self-esteem, their emotional security.
So isn't that where he talks about, look at people as being spiritually sick? They, like ourselves, we're sick too.
Yeah,
I mean, we're all spiritually sick.
we're all spiritually sick, absolutely.
Who's that person, we responded in some negative way to that. We had an extreme reaction to that. That's challenge
Yeah.
to ourselves.
We did it a couple of weeks ago with the 4 elements of fear. You remember that? Ultra sensitivity,
Right.
ultra childishness, ultra egocentricity. Yeah, those. So everything we're talking about now is we've kind of touched on in this process, right? And you're seeing it come out to play in the questions that you're asking. And you'll see all these things that we've been talking about come out to play in this inventory process. We didn't just go over all of this stuff because I wanted to take an hour of your time every week. We went over all this stuff because it's so pertinent to what we have to do here. That's why it's very important when you miss a week, you watch the video because you miss a lot of stuff. Okay, so we've got like 4 minutes left. Thank you, whoever said guilt and shame, because I was having a mature moment and anybody else got a question?
I have
So-
a quick question.
Yes,
What, it's kind of silly, but what do you do if your numbers are the same? Like if it's a tie?
yeah, yeah. If it's a tie, you're pretty much an emotional wreck. But no, that happens. That happens. So let's say for argument's sake that your self-esteem is 26 and your emotional security is 26. Well, when you get mad, it's one of those two things. Even if one was lower than the other, it's not always the highest one, but most of the time it is. And if your two highest ones are tied, you could do one of two things. You can go through your list again and see if one of them needs to be changed or not. If it's not, if they're tied, and that's where your anger stems from. But I guarantee you, people, if you look at your own inventories, you're going to see that this stuff is right on the money. That this is where your anger stems from, whatever number is highest on your list. And how you act out in column 5, your highest number, that's how you usually act out. I guarantee you that's the way it really is. That's how powerful this stuff is. That's how true this stuff is. Anybody else got a question?
Okay, I have a question.
Yes,
On that page 100 deal,
yes.
okay, y'all talk about that you shouldn't have like liquor in the house. So you think you shouldn't have like liquor in the house and be around liquor for a good year till you get some under your belt?
I would say it's a good idea to not have liquor in the house your first
Yeah, I
year,
still want to go get liquor.
your first year. But when you're sober, then that's when you're spiritually fit, that shouldn't bother you. You've been to
Okay.
my place, I have a full bar,
Right.
in
but
my
I mean,
place.
'cause if we don't,
So,
I don't allow it in the house.
well,
The kids, we can go to the kids' house and they have, and that's fine, that's them,
yeah, but he's not in his first year anymore.
no.
So real quick, I think I shared this with you before. I was in a meeting a few years back, 4 or 5 years ago, and a lady had like 12 years sober, and she was sharing about in Florida, in the supermarkets, they sell liquor in the aisles, they have liquor aisles, wine. And she was sharing about, she don't go down this aisle because that's where the wine is. And I'm thinking, for 12 years sober, that's a horrible message.
Yep.
That page 100, that directly written for her. Because there's something the matter with her spiritual condition after 12 years if she can't walk down the aisle because there's wine there. Anyway, we're out of time. Next week, same time, same channel. Thank you. We'll finish step 6 next week and step 5, probably start step 6.
You want me to start recording?
Thanks.